We'll welcome him in. We'll get Lukas back here shortly as soon as his editor comes back. But we got John Maakaron on the program. John, welcome to the show, brother. Hey, how's your week been? I know you were at Comerica Park. You're doing a little, you were covering some stuff for your website and the things you do. What you been up to last week, man? A lot of things have been happening for Detroit Lions fans.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, y'all asked me to level up. I'm going to do the dangerous stuff here. This stuff is legendary good. Here.
Modelo.
Oh, you see, Lukas, he's a Modelo guy. He's a big Modelo guy. And that's so
Lucas has never looked better. So all
that's what we want, John. That's what we want. Hold on.
That's what you want, brother.
So I'll be back, fellas, but I had to comment on that.
No, yeah, it's been a great week, man. I told you guys last week, if you go back and listen, had good news with Sports Illustrated. They showed a lot of love, and it was crazy. It was a crazy week to have a lot of people asking for the services of the doc to cover the Lions. I was shocked. I thought for a minute when SI was changing handlers and all the behind the scenes stuff, when management changes and stuff happens, you never know. Do they want you and value you?
Yeah.
But management from the old place came to the new place, and they showed a lot of love to the doc. And
let's go.
They showed a lot of love. So I'm going to be around for a long ass time doing this and having a good time covering the Lions. And yeah, first time ever. I did a little self-promotion online. SI's been doing a lot of good things over the last couple of years. Finally, the Tigers invited me to come eat their food and check out.
I saw that.
That was great. It was the first time ever I got invited. I'm like, I'm moving on up in the world, turned 45, and my fortunes covering sports for the last 10 years has changed. Breaking news, doing more podcasts. So things have been good for the DOC. I'm always grateful, and I feel like the good fortunes that I've had, I'm just trying to pay it forward for everybody else. So I'm having a great ass time. I'm going to cheers to me and you, and I'm loving life at the moment.
Cheers, Doc.
That food looked great today too. That food looked awesome. I was following along.
A horse. I ate as much food as humanly possible. I didn't have to eat dinner. This is the first thing I ate. The first thing I put in my mouth since lunch. I ate that good. The food there was good. They took care of us.
Yeah.
Man.
Well,
what was your favorite thing before we get started? What was your favorite thing you ate at Comerica today?
Dude, he had some dishes.
The smash burger was good. The smash burger was really good, man. Cooked medium perfectly. And they served us alcohol, which was crazy. So I took a couple Casamigos and downed them with Matt and had a good time.
Fuck yeah.
Well, Doc, you know how we feel about you, Doc. We appreciate the hell out of you. We try to hold on to our Doc stock, I call it. Because again, we'll be able to cash that out at some point. But Doc, I do want to ask you. Breaking news today, of course, Josh Reynolds. We've talked with you about this before, and you kind of share the same sentiment we do. What's your kind of thoughts on it? He's joining the Broncos, 2-year, up to $14 million deal. Just your initial reaction. I know you wrote about it, which the links will be in the description. But just your initial thoughts on his departure and what it means for the Lions.
Yeah, reportedly, Brad lowballed him. And we talked about it. You asked me a couple weeks ago, I believe, and I believe that what I told you was pretty accurate. And now it bared fruit. It bared to be true. Josh Reynolds wanted to take the best offer. And clearly, when you're 29 years old, you're not going to have that many opportunities to make multi-year deals and the money that he made with the Broncos. And I just feel like the Lions had a certain number for him. They weren't going to budge off of it. And when you realize if you're Josh Reynolds, the opportunities in Detroit were just dwindling. You got Antoine Green, DPJ that re-signed, Laporta, Gibbs, all going to get more touches along with JMO. So if you're Josh Reynolds, you realize, okay, I'm not feeling the love in Detroit anymore. And he went to a spot that potentially he could succeed with. I think that clearly Sean Payton will utilize him to the best of his abilities. And good for him, up to $14 million. I think he cashed the deal. And for the Detroit Lions, they move forward. I don't think they're going to miss him too much because the replacement there, the Lions offense has the opportunity to do a lot of good things. And you're hearing that the Lions are doing a lot of work on the receivers that are coming out in this draft. There's a deep class. So there's an opportunity to add a replacement as well. So Josh, everyone thanks you for your service, but it was time to move on.
Doc, I want to get into the other side of the ball here, the corner situation, the Cam Sutton thing. We did talk about it when you were on last week a little bit, because obviously it was all a little fresh and everything was going down. like a week out of it now. Dan Campbell and Brad, they both spoke with media. Seemed like a little bit, at least here on our show, how we took it. They both seem to be, I don't want on different pages, I guess is a good way to say it. As Dan said, there's some urgency to add another corner, and Brad came out and said, I'm comfortable, and I like the battle we have with the Meek and Carlton Davis. And then when Mosley comes back, he likes that battle. Do you see them? What do you see going on there? Obviously, a lot of people think the draft is going to be the place they add, but there is like the crowd of get Stephon Gilmore, go get a vet. Do you think they do that, or do you think it's kind of done after those comments and they just go draft?
Yeah, it was kind of funny to hear the conflicting. If you're Brad Holmes, you're like, Dan, be quiet. That just added $2 million to the request from the agent. Dan's like, we need a corner. We're desperate. Look who we got. Look at this. And Brad's like, we're good. We got this. So it's funny to hear, but clearly they need a cornerback or two more to this roster. You realize that there's a lot of risk involved with Emmanuel Mosley. And you recognize that, look, even though Amik Robertson is the little engine that could, and he's only 5'8", Lukas is probably taller than Amik Robertson. He's a gamer, obviously, but he's 5'8", and he's undersized. And look, in the end, I'm curious to see how the new rule regarding the banning of the hip drop tackle, how that affects tackling and what these teams do. Because to me, if you're looking for somebody in the draft now, based on the new rules that were brought up in regards to the kickoff rule and the hip drop, you know what? I think it brings cornerback Cooper DeJean into play at 29. I think he's a gamer. I think he can be a special teams contributor as well. Very versatile. Obviously, Jack Campbell told me that Cooper was a dog when he made plays at Iowa. So in my mind, I think that you probably look to the draft and you probably look for best player available at number 29. But at the same token, I'm not thrilled with, Stephon Gilmore. I know everybody loves that, Adoree Jackson, all those names that are out there, by now, if you kind of can tell if teams haven't picked them up already, then they're probably not all that great, So in my mind, I look at it like it's still a position of need and you need to add probably one, maybe even two more. And we'll see how this is going to play out. It's a key position. We all know it.
Big time.
Yeah, John, you kind of brought it up a little bit, the kickoff changes. How would those changes, or how could those changes rather, benefit the Lions? And just what are your thoughts on them banning the hip drop tackle?
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, they've made football a sport for pussies. I mean, come on. We can't tackle. We can't hit. You can't do this. You can't breathe on a quarterback. It's like, in my mind, I looked at it like I was a fan of the sport when Brian Urlacher was there, and the linebacker position was valued, and you could hit quarterbacks and light them up. The highlights on ESPN when the quarterback would get lit up or big hits. And nowadays you can't. It's like football is not as, the pure violence of the sport is not as there. It's not as fun. And this is going to cause chaos because the Lions are going to record a great tackle and it's going to be a violation. It's going to involve a lot more subjectivity with the hip drop because people got to learn more now, the new way of doing it. And it's going to cause a lot of confusion based on the ways people were taught. It's really ridiculous. It's pointless, especially when the players come out and say, we don't want it. And so I understand, look, in the end, guys, the brain injury and CTE lawsuits, when the league started paying money for former players that had long-lasting injuries, it turned the sport around. Now everything is looked at as how do we protect the players so that we don't got to pay out our ass to these players when they're 55. So that's what's happening, and it's ruining the sport in my mind a little bit. It's just a joke, like everybody would say. The kickoff, what I'm fascinated with, it does look a little corny when you see how it looks, but I think for the Lions, you can take advantage because you have some speedsters. Maybe that involves Jahmyr Gibbs or JMO taking a couple kicks back. I know Raymond and the likes of Maurice Alexander could do it as well. But I think the Lions will. Dave Phipp is a wizard. He'll find ways to take advantage of it. And what you've seen, if you watch XFL football, there's opportunities now for more opportunities to break some kickoffs. And we all saw last year, it was terrible. The kickoffs were basically a formality, no drama, no intrigue at all. So this kickoff rule, in my mind, I'm in favor of it. I think it's going to provide more excitement, maybe more opportunities to see some starters get back there and get some field opportunity and get some good field position. Special teams, baby. It's important, and Dan Campbell values it. So he's in the lab with Dave Phipp right now going, how can we get that extra 20 yards in a key moment?
Shout out Dave
so
Phipp.
Absolutely, the Lions are going to take advantage. You know it.
Yeah, John, sorry for not being able to be here at the beginning of the show. My Wi-Fi was fucking up per usual, but something that with all these moves being made, that's not being talked about as much as going into the offseason is the extension of Jared Goff. And we talked about it a lot over the last couple of episodes. Have you heard any updates on that? Do you think it's going to get done soon? Do you think it's not going to happen at all this offseason? Where does that stand as of right now?
As it stands right now, best way to put it is when you're crunching those kind of numbers, you're going through it with a fine-tooth comb. So if it happens, I would say probably just before training camp, late July, August, you'll see it get done. I think that for sure it's a priority. When Dan Campbell says it's an organizational priority, clearly what's happening, what's happening. Jared Goff's camp's like 51, and Brad Holmes like, how about 45? And then Jared Goff's camp's like, how about 50? And then Brad Holmes' camp is like, how about 45-1? And they're working their way to that magic number of probably 47.5. So Jared Goff has to ask for the world. So that's the way these negotiations go. The agent's like, pay my man his money. He earned it. And Brad's like, I want to save a little bit here so he can have some players. So do you want Jared Goff? And they're having these conversations. It takes forever. A contract of this magnitude is not going to get done fast. I do see it getting done with everybody being happy. But right now they're in the war room battling out for the numbers, and in negotiation, you want both parties to feel good. But Jared Goff's agent sitting back going, probably need a 5 in that starting point. And Brad's probably like, I really need a 4, man. I need a 45, 47.5. And they're looking at years, terms. It's intricate in regards to the signing bonus, how much is guaranteed, the years. Maybe Brad will throw in a free year if they lower it a little bit. So it's intricate to do these negotiations. They don't just happen fast. So I would always love that be the best is when I just want to hear the bullshit that the teams will say to try to bring the number down. Well, Jared's not that mobile. And, in the big games, he kind of does this and that and stuff like that. All haggling over $2.5 million. So it's fun to see. It'll happen. Brad loves him some Jared Goff. It'll happen probably. Look for it probably July, August.
Of course, we're talking to the publisher of All Lions and host of the Detroit Sports Podcast, John Maakaron, who joins us every Wednesday at 8:45. The Doc. Well, John, you it's a good transition because you talked about the extension, and we had a conversation over the last couple of days. It's been a random, it's the off season. We like to spark different conversations, and obviously with the Jared Goff extensions kind of looming, and we're all expecting it to get done. The big thing for me is the length and how it affects Hendon Hooker. And I'm not saying you change everything you do for a guy that you don't know what kind of potential he has, but John, I've been a fan of what he can be in the NFL. And I want to ask you, how do you think, and from your point of view, obviously we don't know Brad Holmes and his approach, and we don't know what they think of Hendon Hooker because he was hurt most of last year, and you'll get more action this year to see what he is. But how do you think Brad approaches a situation like that, where you have a stable starter, but you also have like kind of an unknown entity, or I shouldn't say unknown, but somebody you don't know what he can be in the pros. And now you're seeing the value of having, of course, a rookie contract. I mean, the Bears are spending, the Texans are spending. How do you think Brad should approach this? Because I just think it's not about picking a side to me, John. Like, I think when people have this conversation, it's like, oh, you like Hendon, so you hate Goff. No, I do. I like Goff. But I just think the Lions shouldn't, Brad Holmes shouldn't put all his eggs in one basket. Is that unfair for me to say? Where are you at with it?
Not at all. I think that a lot of people are looking at this and saying, well, could you get success at a much cheaper rate with Hendon Hooker? Before I get into all that, it's a really good, loaded question, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. I want to cheers to Mike Reed. Yes, Doc is a legend, and
let's go.
The chat always lights up. I love seeing the stuff that you guys post on there. So ask away. These boys will ask me a couple questions from the chat. Look, Hendon Hooker's a backup plan, but he's inexperienced. You don't turn the keys over for a Ferrari to a 15-year-old. You just don't do it. Doesn't have any experience. So you cannot realistically say, I'm going to turn over a team poised to take a 2024 season and get to the Super Bowl and win it and think that Hendon Hooker's the answer. He's a developmental player, strictly, period. Look, they brought back Nate Sudfeld probably to compete with him. But I look at it like Jared Goff probably starting points 4 years. The man's done it. I mean, the man has showed you he can win playoff games. It's a lot of different debates in regards to, do I believe that Jared Goff can win a Super Bowl? Probably not. In regards to the fact that there's so many great quarterbacks out there in the AFC, and it's going to take a Herculean effort in order for the Detroit Lions to take that huge leap. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen it in my own eyes. It would be a shock to ever imagine the Lions winning the Super Bowl. You need a quarterback in this day and age that is a combination of athletic and can throw the football deep and is a wizard in those late moments. You need those combinations. But look, that doesn't mean that you can't build a good football team around Jared Goff. He's an elite starter. He's a guy that can win you playoff games. And that's capital if you're Jared Goff. You're Jared Goff, your agent, you're like 30 years, no playoff wins. My man comes here and you built around him, and this football team has embraced Jared Goff. He's gritty. He embraces the challenge. He embraces the fact that he was dumped from one situation and took over another and had success. So in my mind, do I believe he deserves the break the bank money? No. So in my mind, you give him 4 years at $47.5 million and you call it a day. And I think that there's not a lot of risk involved in doing that. It's a situation in which you got a safe quarterback that you can trust. Give him a good running game, good O-line. He'll navigate, and he'll be a safe quarterback that can win you a lot of games. You're going to need him, in my mind, to take that next step to be able to be elite in the postseason and raise his game even more. And there's a chance he could do that. I think there is a chance in those kind of big moments he can get to the Super Bowl, and then all bets are off. Like I said, to me, winning the Super Bowl is a dream scenario that involves like heavenly fairy tales to believe that the Lions win the Super Bowl. To me, like I said, with Patrick Mahomes out there, with Lamar Jackson getting reinforcements, with, Joe Burrow and the level of quarterbacks that are coming, it's just a situation in which the athleticism that you have with Jared Goff is not there. But Hendon Hooker is still raw, no NFL experience. So in my mind, Jared Goff is in the driver's seat, can leverage the Lions to the max. But in the same token, if things do fall off with Jared Goff, I don't believe that the Lions will be so heavily, devastated that they'll be. Look, if you saw what happened with Russell Wilson, an organization was willing to pay north of $70 million dead cap money to get rid of a guy. So in my mind, if Jared Goff falls off, then I think you hope that Jared Goff at least gives us 1 or 2 more years so that Hooker can develop and you can see what you got with him. But you still don't know what you got in your backup right now.
Yeah, 4 years. Hey, that's something new, John.
4 years.
The 4 years. Okay. All right. It's such a great. The reason why it's interesting, before Booner, he's got one for you, is just the situation. Like this offense, the staff, the offensive line, the run game, the weapons. And again, you are correct about the unproven commodity. It's fair. It's going to be interesting to see this preseason. You'll get to see a little bit of them. So I guess we'll have to wait.
I think
real fast, Jeff. When you look at it from Jared Goff's perspective, why would you take a shorter term deal? You deserve to break the bank. You brought 2 playoff wins to the city. You embody everything that Dan Campbell would like. The offense has been built. You got Ben Johnson turning down jobs to work with Jared Goff. And I just think that if you're Jared Goff, you want years, you want security, stability, you want a hefty signing bonus as a reward. First and foremost, you got to remember, Jared in 2021 worked with guys that are unheard of to run this offense. He took a beating and he stood there, he stood tall and was able to rebound, was not a malcontent. He weathered it all, stood in front of the media like a man and handled it all. And he rebounded and was able to bring Detroit things that we haven't seen in ages. I mean, if you're Jared Goff, you have so many things from a leverage standpoint, to get as much money in years as you can. There's no way you don't ask for it. There's no way that you don't ask for a hefty contract from the Detroit Lions. She's 29 years old.
Hey, John, put some respect on Terrell Williams' name, though. You know what I mean? Like, what was
right.
it? Was that the wide receiver?
Williams, yeah.
Anthony Daryl Hodge. Anthony Daryl Hodge starting.
Daryl Hodge.
Rashad Perriman.
I mean, Doc, I think me and you are lockstep when it comes to the Hendon or the Jared Goff Hendon Hooker thing. I've been getting a lot of comments on my Twitter. People, we want to see Hendon Hooker. It's just shocking to me that there's so many people that months ago were chanting Jared Goff, and those same people now are like, let's see Hendon Hooker. Let's see Hendon Hooker. Shocking to me. But me and you are lockstep. I want to ask this when it comes to Jared Goff, though. Building around Jared Goff, the offseason of Brad Holmes. Brad mentioned the other day that he felt like it was his best offseason he's had so far, free agent class, everything that since he's been in Detroit. Marcus Davenport, Carlton Davis, Kevin Zeitler, DJ Reader, a lot of these guys. Are you kind of in that same? Did you feel like it was his best offseason so far to kind of improve this football team and a team that could probably go, hopefully go to a Super Bowl with what he brought in?
No doubt about it. I thought that when you look at it, last season was interesting, obviously getting CD Deuce, but unfortunately he took a swing last year and the injury bug took over. I thought last year had a chance to be more successful with Mosley and CD Deuce. But yeah, when you look at the needs that were there for the Lions, you add a couple of defensive backs, you add a couple of defensive linemen and a veteran offensive lineman to take over for who left in Jonah Jackson. Yeah, he should be happy that it was okay. Do I believe that it's something where you need to gloat about it? No, I just think that you did lose some pieces too. You can't discount losing Josh Reynolds. He had a connection with Jared Goff, security blanket. He made big plays. He was all over the field at different spots, XYZ, doing all the things that he needed to do, made plays. Yeah, the ending was sour, but he had a connection with Jared Goff. You can't discount that. It's taken Jameson Williams well over 12 months, and they still don't arguably have the connection that Josh Reynolds had with Jared Goff. CD Deuce is gone. You lose Jonah Jackson. So in my mind, you at least are similar in terms of talent in regards to situations in which you needed some replacements. And with 30% overhaul, you're going to need to find guys that are reliable, affordable, and fit the culture. You can't have too many Cam Suttons running around your place there. You're going to have those meetings and you got to have those kind of uncomfortable talks if, your guy working out in your facility is getting caught doing some things legally that he's not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So in my mind too, the thing that we all can love and really respect is you got to take into account the growth of the second-year players, Jack Campbell, Gibbs, and Laporta. The value of those guys getting better is going to be so integral to this team. And then you're going to add some more developmental pieces who don't even have to play. You're probably going to add 4 or 5 guys that are going to be more cornerstone pieces. You got a dozen guys that you can name that are cornerstone guys. You're building a foundation which can last. So, man, it's unbelievable that Brad Holmes has said it. He uses free agency to fill needs, and that's what he did. And now all we got to do is toast and pray these dudes stay healthy. Whoever you got to pray to, figure it out and double down. If this team stays healthy, they'll be okay. But at the same token, that if you're the medical personnel department, stock up on the tape, stock up on those extra tables, because there's going to be some guys that'll be sitting on there at some point during the season.
I would love to see a full season healthy Marcus Davenport. I would love to see a full season. Look at what he did when he played. Lucas,
you had that with Romeo Quora.
Lucas just picks guys and hates them and doesn't even think about the other side. Marcus Davenport, exactly in games he's played, he had a season where he played 11 games and 9.5 sacks. He had a season last year.
What happened last year?
He played in 4 games and had 2 sacks. That's a pretty good rate to me, if you ask me. Stay healthy, get sacks.
4 games sounds terrible to me. Anyway, so we don't.
That's what I said. If he stays healthy, guess what? That man's going to bring you some sacks.
Yeah.
You don't like sacks? 4? You don't like sacks, Lucas?
Yeah, I just like a guy that can actually get to the pass.
Romeo Quora, 13 games, 2 sacks. Marcus Davenport, 4 games, 2 sacks. How about those? How about that data for you?
How many?
What, like 12, 13 games from Romeo Quora?
How many
2 sacks? 2?
How many sacks? And
4 games. 4 games
Marcus?
and 2 sacks. 4 games and 2 sacks for Marcus.
He's got a point.
4 games.
2 sacks.
How about that for data?
2 sacks each.
How about that for data? Gentry, go ahead.
All right, John. Colin Cowherd had a quote. I think it was earlier on in the week. He said, "Reckless has never hosted a trophy. A trophy. Holy shit!" But do you think he's talking about Dan Campbell? Obviously, do you think Dan ever wavers from that? And do you agree with that statement?
Man, I respect Colin Cowherd, and I know a lot of people in the chat respect Colin Cowherd, but I think he's wrong on this one. Look, listen, Dan Campbell got to where he is learning from Sean Payton. Yes, more often there are times maybe he should take points, but he's never going to blast Brad Holmes. You can't take points when your kicker you just aren't confident in just yet. Now they keep bringing him back. I'm curious to see if Badgley stays on this team or does he keep getting cut. But look, Dan Campbell came from the school of being ultra aggressive. There are times in football where that benefits you in terms of extra possessions. Do I think he's reckless at times? Yeah, you could argue that. But at the same token, if you're Dan Campbell and you have this offense and you trust the guys that you have, you know, the old model, and look, analytics plays a part too. These analytic nerds, they sit in their computer and they type it up and they're like, go for it. So, you know, he takes that into serious consideration. I do think that in different spots, maybe different play calls will take place, but and different field position. Clearly, sometimes when Dan would go for it on 4th down and, you know, on his own side of the field, maybe that is a little bit reckless and he does kind of adapt a little bit. But in terms of the frequency, I think he's going to go for it and he's going to continue. You look at it, and the thing that people are going to pay attention to is, did he learn a lot from the San Francisco game in terms of what happened in the second half? Did he get stung by that? I know people, it's easy to say, don't be aggressive, but these guys are programmed, man. He's wired. He wants to go for it. And you got that offense. It's hard to argue if Reynolds doesn't drop it. Lions are having some success there in regards to what's going on there. So in my mind, I just, I don't know if Dan will ever concede. I don't know. It'll be tough if he does, if he adapts with older age. I just see a guy that learned under Sean Payton, and with Sean Payton, it was go, 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 onside kicks, fake punts, and you put your opponent to the test. But in my mind, that's the only thing that you can really debate with Dan Campbell in regards to his coaching is, when does he select to kick field goals? But in the end, would you be confident kicking 50-yard field goals with the guys that they got? So they're still rolling with them, but I'm wondering why the kicking situation has not been as proficient as you think it should be. Maybe they take one in the draft. Maybe the opportunity that Brad Holmes saw the kicker there, maybe he's like, okay, we get some competition, some real competition. He did say they're adding a kicker to battle Badgley, so we'll see.
I love that. I love that.
Marco Romo's coming back, baby.
Competition. But I think Colin Cowherd is more old school, and it's hard to see these new school coaches going pedal to the metal all the time.
Yeah, John, and a question that we kind of talked about before you came on here was, now that Josh Reynolds signs in Denver, is there any veteran wide receivers that are on the free agent market that sparked your interest that you think the Lions could possibly pursue? Or do you think they're strictly going to go in the draft to kind of replace that, to go with the Donovan Peoples-Jones, Khalif Raymond, and Jamison Williams supply they already have?
DJ Chark's out there, John. He's floating around out there.
Yeah, DJ Chark. Let's bring Quandre Diggs back too. Offense, defense, bring the brand back together. No, I don't think they target no free agent wideouts. The draft class, you're hearing the Lions are doing a lot of work on them. I've been watching film on Troy Franklin, big-bodied receiver, super speedy. Didn't really work out well at the combine, but the Oregon wideout, man, he's looking good, looking solid. You look at this draft class, man, there's a lot of wideouts that can do things at all different days of the draft. And guys, you look at it, I know everyone is looking at the production loss from Josh Reynolds, but Antoine Green, Jamison Williams picks it up, more targets to Gibbs and Laporta. You're not going to miss Josh Reynolds all that much. So in my mind, you go get a wide receiver in the draft and you develop them. In my mind, Keon Coleman always suits a personal need there, being a Spartan, big-bodied guy. You know, Troy Franklin maybe in later rounds. But my goodness, could you imagine if the Lions just get lucky and get one of those top wideouts that falls in a spot? Oh, my goodness. You look at it and you say, this offense was so sick before. You know, could you imagine Xavier Leggett in this situation? Could you imagine a Ladd McConkey on this football team? Come on. There's a lot of guys that can come in and be something that contributes to this football team. And in my mind, hey, you know, what about Roman Wilson? What do you think? some guys later on in rounds that people don't typically think, maybe Brad Holmes will take a chance on someone that doesn't even have to play. But at the same token, this offense is, I have no questions about the Detroit Lions offense. It's coming back. It's going to be light 'em up city. And Josh Reynolds is just a cap casualty. No doubt about it.
Well, John, we got some questions here from a couple of members. We'll get to. We'll start us off with ETN's question, and it says question. And I love Colin Cowherd. I didn't know this was a thing. It was we'll get to a question.
Wow.
Thoughts on Colin Cowherd putting the Vikings in his top 10 teams?
Is that true?
Top 10?
You
You don't lose a quarterback and roll with Sam Darnold and think you're rolling.
He loves Sam Darnold, though.
I
He
know,
loves
that's-
Sam Darnold.
Listen, when you go to California and you're sunny surfing and doing all your thing, you're not watching as much film as we are. The Vikings are taking a step back. Justin Jefferson's sick, but at the same token, you realize that they are not a top 10 football team. The teams like Etienne said, Texans, Bengals. Oh my God, what a Dolphins. No way. Colin Cowherd is maybe partaking in the California, greenery situation. And no, absolutely not.
All right, that's fair. Alan W has a question too. Is Houston and Davenport our solutions for DN opposite of Hutch, or do you see us addressing that this offseason?
Further, yeah, I think they're going to continue to look at. You never have enough pass rushers in the NFL. Never. You look for them, you find them in the draft, and you continue it. Houston, Davenport, I think definitely guys that they're going to roll with early on in the season, but look for a young defensive end coming in from the draft that also can get some time, some reps later on in the year. No doubt about it. That's the key. Who plays opposite Hutch better contribute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no question. And then the last one from Bon J says, mailbag, do you think MCDC will gamble less if he has a reliable kicker? Something I often think about, John.
Yeah, it's been crazy because the last 3 years going out there to Allen Park, it's been watching the kicking competition. It's just one week one guy's hot, then the next week the other guy's hot. The infatuation with Patterson and Badgley, I would blow them both out and go find a kicker in the draft. I don't think that I would be loyal to the money badger. Riley Patterson has been in and out. I don't think we haven't been really as tough on Dave Phipp and the Lions about the kicking situation because the offense has been so proficient, but the kicking situation is not stable. It was, they didn't need it. They didn't really feel like they wanted to utilize something in an opportunity when it could have been a strength for this football team. Not a significant issue, but in those critical moments, the opportunity where you can send a kicker out there. In the end, how valuable is it for Baltimore to have Tucker? He's out there, 3 points. It's peace of mind. And in football, when you have solutions, it just makes things so much easier not to have to worry about that decision.
Yeah, no question. Good stuff, John. We appreciate you taking the time as always. Of course, you can follow John. We have the links, all links in the description. Of course, host of the Detroit Sports Podcast, and of course, publisher of All Lines, which All Lines is around. They're going to be here for a while. All right, it's real estate here for All Lines. We appreciate you, John. Keep up the good work, and we'll talk to you next week. All right.
I'm looking forward to it, boys. Man, it's gonna be a good week to recap everything with the owners meeting and football. Maybe, man, one more free agency move coming up. Stay tuned to All Lions for all the coverage, and it's going to be here for a while. Like I told you last week, it was a fun week to keep being part of the community, and you boys are rocking it. I always enjoy the shows, always enjoy the spaces with Adam and Jeff. Are you flirting around already, Jeff? I know that you're a guy that doesnn like to stay one place too long.
No,
so I'll be paying attention.
Hey, to be fair, Adam is my boy. That's my boy. So I got to do the spaces with him. We have some fun over there. Hey, I was at Woodward for about 4 years. All right. So it's kind of a long time, decent long time. Would have been there longer, but things happen. But anyway, we'll see. Thanks, John. We appreciate you.
Shout out to Doc.
Appreciate you, Doc.
Doc. Love that, dude. That dude. Protect him at all costs.